Good morning, fifth grade. This is Mrs. Harris. Coming to you with one of what will be a series of videos that go over some of the work that you will be receiving if you have or plan to go and pick up the second work packet for at-home learning. Say hello to Halo. Hey, Halo. This is my cat who always sits on the side of the chair whenever I'm sitting on my couch. Okay, so if you have this packet, it looks like this. Trying to flip the camera, and it's not letting me. All right, so I have to hold it up. This is all new to learn, for me to learn how to do all these videos and stuff. So, the front of your packet should look like this. Belmont Elementary 5th grade at-home learning, March 30th through April 10th, ELA. And that is the packet that I'm going to be doing small, short, little mini lessons out of. So, the first few pages are kind of like table of contents telling you what's in the packet and all of those things. So, of course, we don't have to go over those. The one that I'm going to do on this video it's called Lesson 21, Homographs. And it is a lesson from the Ready Common Core book. Yeah, so I had to kind of figure out how to turn my camera around so that you can see which document that I'm talking about. This lesson is on homographs. So what I'm going to do is basically go over the introduction, talk about homographs. I will add some extra things into what's already written there. And then at the bottom, if you can see, it says it's guided practice. And guided practice, of course, is intended for the teacher to go over it with you so that you can be more successful when we get to the second page, which is independent practice. And on independent practice, there are 5 multiple choice questions that you will be expected to answer on your own after engaging with the intro lesson. So here we go. Homographs. Says introduction. Homographs are words that have the same spelling but different meanings. Sometimes homographs have different pronunciations from one another. Okay, so the word wind is a homograph, okay? But you could also read it as the word wind is a homograph, okay? So when it's pronounced as wind, the definition is the sentence says, a brisk wind blew, so I buttoned my coat, okay? So wind, going down here to where the definition is, it says wind, which is a noun, and that means moving air. Okay, when you're outside, if somebody says, wow, the wind is blowing really, really hard, you understand what it means. Okay, and just like in the sentence, a brisk wind blew, so I buttoned my coat. All right, then the second sentence says, then I began to wind my way down the hill to the village. Okay, so different pronunciation on this homograph. Instead of wind, it's now wind. What is the definition of wind? Well, right down here, the definition of wind, which is a verb, to go along a twisty path. Second definition says to wrap something around another object, like you can take string and wind it around something, wind string or a rope around a pole or something of that nature. Okay, now the sidebars. Each homograph has a raised number after the entry word. It's telling you about how the dictionary entries are set up. And then it says the homograph's pronunciation is in parentheses after the entry word. There, where the word is wind, it's showing you that it's pronounced with a short I sound. So that's the little symbol on the top. See if I could zoom in. That kind of is a little, it's like a little U. I guess I could describe it as kind of, sort of. And then when it wants you to know that there's a long I sound, there's just a straight little line over the I, letting you know that it's pronounced with the long I. We know that long vowels say their own name. So A, E, I, O, U, they all sound like A, E, I, O, U in the word. Okay? So, let's talk about a few other homographs that you might be familiar with. I've written down some. Then you can think of some that you may know as well. So, I took these. These came with some cake pans that I brought a while back, and now they're useful to use since I don't have a whiteboard at home. So I just took my dry erase marker and wrote on here. I'll use a Clorox wipe to erase it later. Anyway, here are some of the words that are homographs. Realize that some of them also have a different pronunciation based on the meaning. So the first one, it's bass. Okay, bass refers to a type of fish, but it also can be pronounced bass. And bass, it means like the tone of something. Deep voice or a deep sound of an instrument can be described as bass. Bat is one that definitely should be more familiar. Of course, we know bat is pronounced the same, but there are different meanings. Bat as a noun can refer to the animal, the black animal that flies around, or it can refer to the wooden stick, or sometimes made of plastic, that you use to play baseball with. Bat can also be a verb. When you use that object to hit the ball, that's called batting. Or you can, I always think of a cat. Like if I were to have a ball of paper with halo, he might take his paws and hit it back and forth, like bat it around. So that's also a definition. Next one is bow or bow. Okay, a bow can be what you make when you tie your shoestring, or what you may put in your hair. And bow, can mean to bow down. You bow, Your Highness, your sir, or your Majesty, or whatever the case may be. It's a formal greeting where you bend at the waist. That can be a bow. Okay. Also, other meanings for bow and bow that you can also look up. Down is a multiple meaning word. Think about what down can mean. Okay, the simplest definition is the direction. The opposite of up is down. Okay, but down also has another meaning. So I want to see if you can think about the other meaning or any other meanings of down that you can come up with. Okay, next word, it can be pronounced entrance or entrance. When you make an entrance, that means you come into an area. You make an entrance into a room. That's entrance. But to entrance means that you mesmerize somebody, or you put them in a trance. When someone wants to hypnotize somebody, they may have something that they swing in front of their eyes and hope to entrance them and make them kind of be different than they would normally be. Okay. And evening. Now, evening can be the verb meaning to make something even, to smooth something out, or it can be referring to the time of day. I'll see you in the evening. Okay, and that's when it's used as a noun. All right. I wrote down a bunch more, but I won't put them all on here because I want to get to the guided practice, and I don't want this video to be too long. So at the bottom, back to the intro, it says to find the right meaning of a homograph, read the definitions for each entry, then see which meaning makes sense in the sentence you are reading. So it's basically telling you to know what the meaning is. You need to use context clues, okay? So in order to know which bat they're talking about, if you read a sentence that involves the word bat, you read around it. Now, if it's talking about the game of baseball, then you kind of already know they're not talking about the animal, the bat. Okay. But if it starts talking about the habitats of a bat and the habits and the life cycle of it, then they're probably not talking about the wooden stick that you use to play baseball. So context matters, and reading around the word actually helps. So let's look at the guided practice. It always has these little like hints and things in the sidebar. Remember, we read an entire document. We don't just read the part that looks like, oh, this is the part where we have something to do. We have to read the entire thing. So, hint, homographs are spelled the same but are not necessarily pronounced the same. So we have to remember that. Directions, read as follows. Read the passage. Find each underlying homograph in a dictionary. With a partner, figure out how to pronounce it. I mean, we probably, obviously won't be able to do this with a partner unless you do it with someone in your household, which is perfectly fine. Then write a short definition above each word. So in this way, we'll actually be annotating this text by reading it, figuring out the definitions of the words that are underlined, and then writing the short definition above it. So we will be annotating while we're doing this, okay? So I'll read it, and then we'll go back and do the words. The village was a perfect place to loaf for a few hours. I bought a fresh loaf of bread at a bakery near the beach. A dove was eating crumbs on the sidewalk. Across the street, a seagull dove for food as I watched. Then I bought a present for my mom at a store. I plan to present it to her tonight at dinner. An old wound in my leg began to ache, so I wound my way slowly along the streets. Okay? So in 3 out of 4 of these sets of homographs, you have different pronunciations, but in each pair, each usage of the word is a different definition. So I want to give you a minute to think about what they could mean. See if you can jot down what they mean, and then we'll come back. Okay? Okay, so coming back to, after giving you a few minutes, the first thing it said was to use a dictionary. So if you don't have a hard copy of a dictionary at home, you can use an online dictionary, which is what I did. Here is the dictionary that I use, Merriam-Webster.com, and you can just type the word in that you want to define and look it up. So the first one we have is loaf. Loaf. So I'm going to see what definition or definitions I'm given for the word loaf. Okay, so here they are. Okay, so here it has loaf as a noun. Okay, so definition of loaf. Number 1, a shaped or molded mass of bread. 2, a shaped or molded, often symmetrical mass of food, because you ever heard of meatloaf? Okay, so it doesn't only have to be bread. And then we're not going to think about the third British slang definition. But then as a verb, okay, it means to spend time in idleness. So basically, spend time not doing much of anything that's really productive. That's what it means to loaf, okay? So now, we go back over and we can fill in the definitions a little bit. The village was the perfect place to loaf for a few hours. So, hang out and do nothing is what I put for that. All right. I bought a fresh loaf of bread. So, a shaped mass of bread. It's a really weird way of putting it, but like I talk about in class all the time, sometimes you can know the meaning of a word, but it isn't always easy to give word to it, to define it on your own. So sometimes you have to kind of rely on, I know I do, rely on what the dictionary tells you to kind of have something to write down. But I mean, I'm sure that most of us already knew what a loaf was as it refers to bread. Okay. You get sent to the store, your mom's like, get a loaf of bread. You know what that means. Okay. So the next is a dove was eating crumbs on the sidewalk. Now, You might be able to use background knowledge for that one. Something was eating something, so we know, I mean, this is not like figurative language, this is real, so it was a living thing. So a dove, I'm just going to put a type of bird. Okay. You also could, when you're doing this, actually go to the dictionary. As a matter of fact, I'll do that as well. We can always use all the tools in our arsenal. So basically, if you already know what the meaning of a word is, or you may know one meaning and the context around it gives you a clue to the other one, then what you can do is go ahead and write what you think you know. And you can always, in a situation like this, go to the dictionary and check yourself. Okay, that way you kind of sort of are monitoring how well you're using background knowledge and context clues and even structural clues to get meanings without relying on always having to go to a dictionary, because we know we don't always have a dictionary to go to. Okay, so dove, here it's any of numerous pigeons. So pigeons are types of bird. That's the first definition that it gives, and that's a noun. Although for some reason I don't see it listed. But then the second definition, it gives it, this is the verb, and the definition of dove is the past tense of dive. So we all can understand what the word dive means, like you dive in a pool, you dive in a pile of leaves, or whatever the case may be. The past tense of that is dove. You know, you ever played or been to a party where there's a piñata and they break the piñata and all the candy and, you know, little toys or whatever they have in it spill out? Well, if you wanted to describe what happened at that party, you would say the piñata broke open and all the kids dove for the candy. Okay, so that's what dove means in this. So we just put past tense of dive. And my pen is running out, which is not awesome while I'm trying to record this video. Okay. All right. So the next two sentences, then I bought a present for my mom at a store. Okay, so we don't really need the dictionary for present. We know what a present is. So we can just write shortly what that means above it. So another word for present, a synonym for present would be gift. So right above present, you can write gift. All I have right now is this dry erase marker, which is going to be really big to write, but at least I'm only writing one word, so it's not that bad. So the definition of present, we put gift. Then I plan to present it to her tonight at dinner. And we can be real simple with that. Present means to give it to her, okay? You present something, you give it to someone, or you hand it to them, all right? And then the last two, an old wound in my leg began to ache, so I wound my way slowly along the streets. So here's another example of homographs that have different pronunciations, wound and wound. Okay, so the context around it tells us what the meaning is. So an old wound in my leg, it wouldn't make sense if you know any background about these words. It wouldn't make sense to say an old wound in my leg began to ache, because wound does not refer to a thing. And right there, you need a thing. You need a noun. Okay, so wound means, another word for wound is sore. Okay, sore, injury, something like that, that's a wound. Okay, and that's a noun. So then, so I wound my way slowly along the streets. Now back to our intro, where our homographs were wind and wind. We saw the meaning of wind is to go along a twisty path. Wound is actually the past tense of wind in this context. Okay, so I'm just going to put PT of wine because I'm writing with the stick marker. All right. So now our text is pretty much annotated enough so that even if we didn't fully know the meaning of all these words, now that we have all the definitions written out, we can actually read through it and have a full understanding of everything that it's saying. With that, we are now able, or you are now able, to do your independent practice because we did our guided practice. So I will read the directions. For numbers 1 through 5, choose the correct meaning of the underlined word as it is used in the sentence. All right. So again, utilizing all the skills that we just talked about. You're utilizing your context clues. You are utilizing whatever online or hard copy dictionary you have at your disposal when needed to look up meanings of words. But what I challenge you to do is try to figure out what the meanings are without doing so. And actually, these all give you the word meanings, so you don't even need the dictionary. That's awesome. So you look at the definitions that are available and then read the sentence and see which of the definitions make sense in the context. All right, so I will read number 1. I wandered down to the port to watch cargoes being unloaded from boats. So it gives you A, B, C, D definitions of the word port. A harbor. B is a noun. B, now, the left on a ship. C, now, a valve or opening that lets liquid out. D, and also now a person's manner or bearing. So I wandered down to the port to watch cargoes being unloaded from boats. So the context of this word lets me know that port is somewhere you can wander down to. It's a place. All right, so that should be able to help you figure out which of these definitions are appropriate for number 1. All right, so if you have any questions, any issues, you can feel free to reach out to me through the comments under this video, through Instagram. Have your parents call or text me, and I'll give you all the help that you need, okay? So hopefully you found this video helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.